الله الرحمن الرحيم وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we are just opening up for today's broadcast. And what we're going to do is, as is our new format, we're going to be opening it up both for Blog Talk and for StreamYard, which includes Facebook and YouTube. And we're going to be playing a piece. Let's see the title of it. Well, the theme of tonight, I have to put it that way now since I'm not that ready. The theme of tonight's broadcast is the power in names, the power in names, and all that goes with that when it comes to wealth creation preservation. Lot to say today, lot to bring, and we're going to do so with my co-host Haja Kamila Mahasin Shuaib, as per usual. So for now, let me go ahead and just share the clip that we want to share with you. Here we go. Bismillah.
I always knew if I did not get up, put my energy and effort into something, nothing would happen. And that's what led me. I know we'll get into talking about the community, but that's what led me into what my today version of me is.
Welcome to another episode of Full Transparency with Donnie Wiggins, where I get to sit down with entrepreneurs who are doing great things and let you guys have a fly on the wall perspective about our conversation. So the unique thing about Full Transparency is that I like to invite guests on that either I know in person that are doing some great things, so you get to be on the other side of those conversations, or guests that I am recently being introduced to who are doing some great things. And this man's name precedes him in greatness. I am excited today to have the Booker T. Washington sitting next to me on the couch today. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing fantastically well.
Are you doing fantastically well?
Yes.
That's an interesting way to put it. What's happened today to make it so fantastically well?
You know, on any day, which today is a day I get to reward, meaning people that work for me or people that partner with me, reward them for their hard work. It's always a great day, and today is one of those days.
Oh, tell me what that looks like.
So I'm a real estate developer, and so in my world, I have a lot of people doing a lot of things in order to build the communities and to make homes for homeowners. So all those people involved typically on Fridays get paid. And so today is a great day. I smile on payday because I get a chance to reward them for their hard work and set a path for a new week. So it's always a fantastic day.
I love that so much. So you heard Booker lightly tell you what he does as an entrepreneur, but he's being modest. Yes, Booker T. Washington is a real estate developer.
Yes.
But not only are you a real estate developer, you are the first African American to build a micro community, residential community.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
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 Say it like you mean it. Like yes.
Yes, with period on it.
We're excited.
Yes, with period on the end.
Yes, with period on the end.
Yes.
I was on Instagram Live today, this morning, before our interview, before our time came up. And I told you this. I told you before we started that I did something different today, but I wouldn't tell you what it was.
Okay.
So I'm so excited about this interview.
Yeah.
Namely because you are doing something. You're probably my most innovative guest that I've had sit on this sofa. Wow. Like I've had a lot of great people who are doing great things sitting on this couch, but you are a first and an only.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like being first and only in some stuff.
In some stuff.
Yes.
You are a first and an only. And so
yes,
I took to Instagram today because we don't have an opportunity to have these type of conversations all the time. And I never ever do this, but I wanted to know what our audience wanted to learn about you. So in this conversation, I'm going to be asking some of those questions. Like we actually wrote those questions down from Instagram Live, and they got some really good questions
These people
for
had
you.
Questions?
They have questions.
Wow.
Like they're like, I want to know who this man is, about his journey. But before we even get there, let's talk about your name.
Yeah.
Booker T. Washington.
The full name is Booker Telefarrell Washington. I am named after the civil rights and entrepreneurial leader Booker Telefarrell Washington, who was once a slave, but also is more profoundly known for starting both Hampton University and Tuskegee Institute, which it is named now Tuskegee University, in partnership with George Washington Carver, which ironically is actually also the name of my brother.
George Washington Carver?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the connection
So
with your family?
my mom was a adjunct professor at Auburn University, and she went to do some work at Tuskegee Institute back in the day. And she loved that school. She loved the way that it grew Black people and made them, very studious and champions of entrepreneurship, because that's the reason Booker T. Washington invented the school. He felt through labor and skills in labor that Black people would have power in the entrepreneurial world because he was one of America's first Black millionaires. A lot of people don't know that, and he grew to be one of America's first Black millionaires from being a slave, and that is a testament to the will of what we can do, and that we have more power. So my mom really loved that, and so when she went to school, my brother's older than me, so he was born first. And so she just named him George Washington. Now, her maiden name was Washington, so it was very easy for her to kind of name us that.
Yeah.
But he was born first. But when I was born, she says George Washington Carver was never any good without Booker T.
Oh, that's so powerful. Are you and your brother close?
Yeah.
Really? Did you feel any pressure owning that name growing up?
Well, growing up, I didn't know how big it was till I got to more of like my middle years. But then I started to learn more about him myself and kind of the weight of having that name. But I really embraced it, quite honestly. And I'll just give, side thing. My mom, once I was able to remember, she started telling me why she gave me the name. And she says, any room you'll ever walk into, your name will always be near the top of that stack. I don't care if it's resumes. I don't care if it's a job application. I don't care if it's anything. Because people will always ask themselves first, Booker T. Washington.
Has that been true? Has your name always been
true.
at the top of the stack?
Very true. And even if it wasn't for qualification, it was just for the interest of the name and to ask questions about it. And it got me into a lot of rooms. I'm not going to lie about it.
I love that. So your mom was an adjunct professor at Auburn. These guys in here are Auburn University graduates.
What? Look at there.
Okay, family.
Look at there.
Yes. Did you go to college?
I did. I went to Georgia Southern.
For?
So, just general business. And that's part of my story as well. A lot of people would think different based upon kind of how I've led my life. But I wasn't really a big fan of school.
Okay.
I was an entrepreneur very early. So my story started when we grew up with a single mom. Okay, so she was very strong, but unfortunately, we grew up in a household with just a single mom, no father figures, no dads. So we started entrepreneurship early. My first job was at 11 with a paper route, and I knew what it was to wake up early in the morning. I knew what it was to go out and earn $1. I knew what it was to spend $1. I say fortunately, not unfortunately, I had the opportunity at a young age to help my mom pay rent. I can remember as early as 14 years old when I got a job at McDonald's that I would bring her my paycheck to help her pay bills in the household. So it grew me up early, but I say fortunate because now I realize how powerful that opportunity was, because it allowed me to get an entrepreneurial spirit of what it was like to earn and not be given anything.
It also would give you an idea of what it's like to be a giver and very selfless. Do you believe that had a lot to do with it?
Very big, yeah, because the first thing I always thought about when I got that paycheck was her first and what needed to be provided. So for me, it kind of helped me as a man understand what it was to provide security and move through life that way. And I always knew if I did not get up, put my energy and effort into something, nothing would happen. And that's what led me. I know we'll get into talking about the community, but that's what led me into what my today version of me is.
Yeah. What was the start though? So obviously you've built this micro community. I believe there are 29 homes on that development.
Yep.
But before we even get there, like, take me a little bit through your journey. It didn't start, as a developer. What was your first, outside of the paper route? What was your first like legitimate business?
Really? So my first legitimate business as an entrepreneur, when I got out of school, all I wanted to do was earn money. So I started as a restaurant general manager. So I was in the restaurant world. I actually used to work for Hooters.
Really?
Yes. The downtown one. Yes, it was very fun.
Downtown Atlanta?
Downtown Atlanta. Has
right there on, what's that, International?
International. So I worked there, and I worked at several other restaurants. And so working there, though, being in restaurants, you have to have a form of entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, you are selling food, you're providing guest services and customer service. So at 22, I bought my first franchise. I bought a Quiznos franchise.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of people may not know what Quiznos is.
It's the sub and sandwich shop.
Yes.
I know.
And in my opinion, still the best sub and sandwich shop, although they're not around anymore.
Quiznos is gone.
But, well, in some areas, they're still around.
Okay.
In some colleges and in some airports.
Okay.
But for the most part, they're not around.
Okay.
But I had the opportunity to buy a franchise. So it taught me how to save money. It taught me what it was like to get a lease. It taught me what it was like to pay major bills. It taught me to have employees at an early age. And so I actually had 2 Quiznos subs. Actually, my Quiznos location, if people are familiar with Peachtree Road in Atlanta, is across from Moondogs, which is
I know Moondogs.
Yeah, so right across from there. But early on, but while I had that job, I also started my career in human resources. So when I left the restaurant world, I started my career in human resources, and I had both. So I was having side hustles as early as 22, trying to figure out how to manage a real business and trying to figure out how to pay employees and provide value in their life. And so that is where, I guess, true entrepreneurship started for me.
At such a young age, what made you say entrepreneurship? Like, why not just stay down the path of corporate America?
Unlimited scale. Entrepreneurship provided me what I could see unlimited scale. My Quiznos probably did 900,000 a year. And to see commas at such an early age and how my efforts and work would produce commas, which means multiple dollars past $100,000.
Yeah.
I realized this $30,000 or $40,000 I was making per year in this job could be exponential if I just worked really hard for myself and used the spirit I have and the intellect I have and the ideas I have, because in a corporate job, you basically execute a lot of other people's ideas.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I realized that scale was in it for me entrepreneurial wise. And so while I still had a corporate job, everything I did move towards that entrepreneurship kind of life.
Talk about real estate. How were you first introduced to the world of real estate?
So that's a great story. So actually, I was first introduced to the world of real estate because of the god-awful Super Bowl of the Atlanta Falcons back in the 2016.
Okay.
All right. So I had no interest in real estate at that time. I was a human resource executive. I was making over 6 figures. I was content. Right. But for that Super Bowl, which ended in such dramatic fashion, I had insomnia. I didn't
Who
go
they play that year?
They played the Patriots.
Okay. Oh, is that the game that they lost
Yes.
like by just a smidget?
It lost by a smidget, but it was winning by a ton. It was up 28-3 in the third quarter.
Not you remember the
Yes,
stats.
yes. And they lost that in such dramatic, historic fashion. So because of that trauma.
Okay. Traumatized.
We all live life through trauma. I had insomnia, so I stayed up for 8 hours after the Super Bowl ended. Which the Super Bowl ended at 11 o'clock, by the way. So
Okay.
I just stayed up through the entire night until the morning, watching nothing but HGTV for 8 hours straight. And I kept looking at people and timelines in these houses, and people, quite honestly, I didn't think had a true entrepreneurial spirit out here making major money doing something called flipping houses. And so I said, self, why can't you do that? And so the very next week, I dipped into my 401k and I purchased my first flip for $50,000. And that started my passion in real estate.
Here in Atlanta?
Here in Atlanta.
Okay, so you purchased the first flip. I'm assuming that you have to rehab it and get all this work done to it.
Yep. So because I didn't know anything about real estate, and because I'm the type of person of go hard, figure it out later, I got all the way in, purchased a property within that first week, and said, okay, how are we going to fix it up? So because I didn't have a designer, I didn't have a team, I didn't have much of anybody, I started coming up with all these ideas myself of how to design this home and flip this home. Now, this was in Southwest Atlanta. I have a passion for Southwest Atlanta because that's where I grew up.
Okay.
Okay. I grew up around the Southwest Atlanta corridor between Campbellton Road, Cascade Road, South Fulton. So that's where we live from apartment to apartment.
I grew up on Camp Creek.
See? I lived on Camp Creek.
Yeah.
Yep. Right next to Mrs. Winters on Camp Creek.
Oh, you were on that side of Camp Creek.
I was on that side.
You were on
of
that.
Camp
Now,
Creek
I was
before Camp
on
Creek
that
Marketplace.
side of Camp Creek as a little girl in, gosh, it's not Camelot, but it's the apartment community right next to, you got Miss Winters, then you had McDonald's,
Yes.
the first apartment community
Yes.
right there, and then Creekwood was all the way at the end going by Herschel Road.
It
I grew
was.
up in Creekwood.
Yes.
Yep.
So I just stayed two apartments down.
Okay.
Down. So they had changed the name a million times, but I stayed two apartments down. That was before Camp Creek Marketplace. That was before
Yes.
everything on that street. And so we bopped around Atlanta on the southwest side. And so I had a passion for it. And I had a passion to like make it look great because I could recognize that people weren't able to upkeep their homes like they would on the north side of town, right? So that's why I bought the first property.
Okay.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to try to design this house in such a way, but keep it really affordable. So I said, let me see if I can design this home and try to flip it for $175,000 and still make max profit. So instead of paying a lot of extra people to help design it, I ended up designing that first house. My very first flip, I ended up making $100,000.
Wow. And you had no design experience.
Zero.
Like, was your own style though pretty impeccable though?
Yeah, well, kinda, because at that time when I flipped that home, I had just purchased my first home.
Okay.
But I purchased a home that was kind of already done and already designed, so there was no fixer-upper. But for me, I just kind of started thinking about it through a people process. And this is what would lead me into why I build the community I build today, is I worked in human resources. And I just started thinking through the lens of real estate as it's a people game. It's not a numbers game. Because robots don't live in homes. Humans do.
That's good.
Okay? And humans build houses.
To reach my now I'm gonna cross so many things that could block me, but I made up my mind nothing gonna stop me. This life is nothing but a test, and I'm aiming for success, and there's just no limit to all the great things I can do. I see my possibility. Just woke up and found it here in me. Nothing but green lights ahead of me. I'm looking for the job track to the help of the back of my mind. I hold the vision of my destiny. Can it teach me I will smile then? Because I know what's inside me. It's so much more than I can see. It's so much that I can become. That's why I'm reaching for the sun.
Looking further down the track. Let's see. Can you hear me though? Can you hear me though?
Alhamdulillah, I can hear you very well.
We're on the loud and clear tip, right? All right.
Yeah. No echo, like one and done on the first shotty.
I'm gonna keep learning. I'm gonna keep learning, keep doing it. Get it right. Alhamdulillah. I mean, I was looking at you, as always, you smiling, leading up to our open, right? And then,
Yes.
you make me think about my mother, because I'm looking at the way I'm moving and I'm looking at the way you looking at me, and I'm thinking about me looking at my mother, when your grandmother, of course, when when
I was
she
literally just thinking
there,
about her.
she would all she could do is just move her shoulders like this, but she was bugging, right? It's like, oh yeah. So yeah, beautiful.
I was literally just thinking about her, because
okay, that must be
when
it,
I was, it must have been it, because when I was in Costa Rica, the first night I got there, and every night when we went to sleep for the first 3 nights, there was a frog on our window, on our doorway.
Oh, mashallah, man!
Like each time, so I was like, I saw that frog, and I was like,
let me give you this connection. Maybe you got it already. Okay. You and butterflies and her and frogs. What's the connection? What's the connection?
Metamorphosis or transformation. Yeah.
I know you my child. I know you my child. You know what I'm saying? I don't need no DNA test, right? I don't need no paternity test. If you can make that connection, that's my child. Alhamdulillah. It's all about that metamorphosis, baby. Metamorphosis. Let me get out of here while I keep talking. So, do what you do. Do what you do. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all of our YouTube, Facebook followers and listeners, as well as our Blog Talk Radio family. Alhamdulillah, we have made it here again for another Monday, another Wealth Creation Preservation Day, an opportunity to check in, an opportunity to be enlightened, an opportunity to be motivated and to keep striving forward and to seek to get our share of this life here, while keeping focused on our reasons why, that we are doing this for the sake of Allah, that we are seeking to create a life that is pleased and pleasing to Allah. And that whole flow of things, I was feeling the flow of it, right? First off, the video, what the Imam shared, I watched, that podcast is one of my favorites. And I consider Donnie a mentor because of many classes that I've taken or workshops and things like that. And when I listened to this, if you have an opportunity, please go back and watch the entire video. And then this ideal of how we can watch how other people who are like in the media, meaning he used to work with Elon Musk, Tesla guys. I get them mixed up. Elon and Bezos. I know both of them are just doing things, right? But he worked with Elon, like communicated. He's the one that told him to pursue the dream. Like, you may not want to work here. If you got a spirit to create a thing, you might want to leave and do that, right? And so a lot of his aspects of the things that he started to build was inspired by him watching and observing the way Elon Musk moved. But he did it in a very specific arena around seeing about his home, like it being very specific around the needs of the Bilalian community. And I loved that because it wasn't about climbing the corporate ladder of someone else's dream. It was about, you know what, my dream is good enough and strong enough and important enough and valuable enough that I need to start from the beginning and do what I need to do and trust that it will develop and would be willing to put the sweat equity into the building of it. And that's just one aspect of the large conversation of what I learned about Booker T in this interview. But I looked at the title of the air because, you know, when my dad said, he said, okay, the first 15 minutes, I was thinking to myself, we ain't even really getting to the meat of the of the podcast for us to be like, well, what we gonna talk about from the first 15 minutes, right? So when I chimed in and I see that the title is Power in Names, Allah utilized my dad as a vessel to remind me of this book, my book that I'm writing, because I have a whole area in there about the ideal of identity. And so I'm going to share that with you all now. The more I speak about things out loud that I'm working through and understanding, it opens me up to the vulnerability and being transparent about processing the thought. See, there's a thing about thoughts, and then I will get to it, but I have to make this known because sometimes we'll sit in our thoughts and we don't plant them, right? We don't plant them how? Through language, through speaking it, right? And so we'll have thoughts, and even when you write it down, you know, you'll write it down, and that's only one level of it. But to speak it into the environment, to create and have conversations, to activate the thought is the opportunity for the thought to grow and expand, right? You can have an idea for something that you want to do, but you're not going to execute that idea by yourself. And I just don't believe in the ideal of self-made. You will always need resources to support the thing that you create. Even if it's not a, big air quotes, a partnership, there is still a relationship. So let's use a designer or a seamstress. They'll have a thought in their mind of a design or inspired with a design. They'll sketch it out. They'll sketch out the pattern and what it is. But then what do they need even after they do that? There's a relationship. They have to find the fabric that speaks to what it is that they're looking. So they go to someone who specializes in fabric, right? And they tell them, hey, I need a fabric that's breathable, that has a flowingness to it. So now you're speaking and activating the thought to make it real. So we can have thoughts of things that we want to create. We can have a thought about the business, and then our fears will cause our tongue to be tied. Our fears will cause us to be like afraid of what people's feedback will be, or if people don't validate you or celebrate you like, oh, that's a great idea. We get afraid to share it because we're not open to the criticism, whether good or bad. Some people they're gonna be a hater gonna hate, right? But then there are other individuals that you do have to pay attention, that you understand that the correction that needs to be made is the correction to say that's a great start. Like, you know, my father is my teacher, right? And when I'm processing a thought, when I get it to a certain level of processing the thought, I'll go to him and I'll be like, okay, so I'm working with this thought and this. And, you know, sometimes it'll be like, yes, and this, or he'll be like, that's a good start, right? And so these are his, like, those are the ones that I know I'm prepared for. What's the response that goes along with the thought process? Or even if it's like, you know, make too far over here, you might want to focus more this way. Like he helps to give, because I trust that he's here to support the growth. He's here to support my level of understanding while not shutting down my independence of thinking, right? But to make sure that I am using the proper order and giving the intellect structure as it's flowing, right? And so sometimes we'll have these thoughts, and because our ego wants somebody else to be like, yay, good job, we're afraid to speak it out. So now, here to my point around the name. So I talked about, when I started the book, which has been an ongoing process, and I'm so grateful to Allah that that I'm patient with myself and have chosen not to allow myself to be rushed in the beauty of what I know this project is supposed to be for me. And I was thinking about that, Allah created us growing like plants. That's where it started. That's where the concept first started. And then I just was riding that thought. But it slowly evolved into something else as Allah gave me different signages that said, yes, that, and this, right? So with the names, it was this ideal about the evolution of our community and the understanding and the knowledge that our community comes with, right? And America is overwhelmed with not the trigger word, but the trending term of your purpose. Your purpose. What's your purpose? Like, what's your purpose in life? Like, this is the language that we hear over and over again. And we feel like this purpose is connected to something that we do, right? As opposed to who we are, and really working to grow and nurture who we are. That as a result of us growing and nurturing who we are, all of the other things align and support who we are. So when I think about the name, the visual in my mind about our name is like a seed, right? That it carries the potential. So when you look at a seed, I'm thinking of a lemon tree right now, right? When you look at a seed, when you see the seed, and it's a lemon seed that can be utilized to grow a lemon tree, right? If I'm looking at that seed, am I looking at a lemon tree? No, I'm looking at the potential for a lemon tree, right? If I was to take that seed and cut it open, will I find a lemon tree inside of it? No. I have to engage it in the earth, and it has to be nurtured in the environment to allow it to become its fullest potential, right? In some cases, you can see a seed and you don't know what it is until it is planted, right? So you can see a seed. It's like, okay, this is a seed, but what kind of seed is it? It wasn't labeled. We don't know. Can't identify it, but we know seeds are to engage the earth. They're to be in the ground. We nurture it until it sprouts something, and whatever it sprouts, it lets us know, oh, that's what it's, oh, this was for tomatoes. Oh, this was an apple tree. Oh, this was that, whatever it develops to be. So when my parents named me, they named me Camila. I don't know what the inspiration was. Maybe you can share that with us when we come back. But my name was Camila. And the early stages of our experience as Bilalians in America is had a little, Imam Muhammad had a little name book. I remember this little green, I don't know if that was where they got my name, but it was a little green name book. And it just had name in one line, like this name means this, one sentence, right? And that's what we had. So my name was Camila. And I remember young knowing what my name meant, as that name means perfect. When my dad said, only Allah is perfect. So we say complete, right? So be it, complete. My name means complete. As time went on, and the iterations of the growth of the intellect of our community and how we understood how to look up names and break down names and use the Quran to help us to define the root word and all of the expansion, it became whole and complete. My name means whole and complete, right? Further on, like the further development of the community, right? And then I got the definition from Imam Ibrahim Pasha used to do, and there it is right there on my wall. See it with the little butterfly sticker I'm pointing at? He would sell these framed pictures with the meanings of our names, like full on details, like written out almost like a prayer, because that when he closed it at the end, it would say, may Allah bless her to live up to this her Islamic name, right? And But when my parents named me, that was not, we didn't have access to that knowledge. We weren't at that level of learning and understanding, right? But we are now. And as I further seek to understand this idea, like the thought now, when something hits you, it's okay. It's so beautiful to sit with your thoughts and ask, what was it that made them do XYZ? Why didn't we have this then? Where did so I I'm curious about the developmental I love a good documentary because I love to see that, to bear witness to Allah at work. I love it. Like, you want to get me excited about something? Give me a good documentary, because people will be talking about these components of things that's happening. I'll be going, y'all not seeing this? Like, how this is going down? You not paying attention to how God put these certain pieces in place to make this happen, right? I love to watch, that part of the inspired story. So in me, like, further understand, and my desire to better understand my existence, my desire to know myself, my desire to nurture myself, to really go in and understand what my joy is, what my happiness is. Why am I here? Right? I realized that the answer was in my name. My purpose was in my name. Right? And in me understanding that my purpose was in my name, so were my challenges. Right? My challenges around the ideal of whole and complete. Now, the definition is so it's so beautiful. Amen. Ooh, it's beautiful the way the Imam did it. And I'm praying that my dad got some connects where we could put it in a book, because it's the most powerful tool that the Imam could have ever given us with these definitions of the names, right? Because it gave me the assignment. And I was like, oh my God, I do that. I love doing that. Like, how did he know? Because Allah knew far before I was even born that when Allah put there on my parents' heart, this child, when Allah put on my parents' heart that this child will be named Camila, Allah already knew what my life was going to look like. They didn't know. Imam Pasha didn't know. The individuals in my life didn't know. But Allah knew. And to get that information in time to live out the full expression of this seed, just because my parents were obedient, their heart said, oh, Camila. They could have easily named me what any of my other siblings were. But they said Camila. Why? Because whole and complete. And based on that definition of what the Imam mentioned, said, and she creates spaces to allow others to feel whole and complete. Right? So this is the work I've always done. Like, I love creating spaces where people feel celebrated and loved, and like this, I always did it. But now it put it into focus. Like, oh yeah, you do this, but this is what you are supposed to do. Right? You were being obedient in doing the things, but now it has form, structure, and this is how you can further nurture these things that you're doing. And know that your challenges, the things that you are going to have to work through, the thing that's going to cause you pressure, that's going to crack you open, is you're going to know, you have to know what it means to not be whole. You're going to have to know what it means to not be complete. You're going to have to go through that experience, because you have to understand what it means to be whole and complete. And the only way you can know whole and complete is to be broken and incomplete. I hope y'all following me on this. I hope y'all understand that though I am speaking of my name in this moment, what is your name? Even if you chose this name for yourself, in that name is the challenges and the cure. In that name is fi ahsani taqwim. In that name is, what makes you excellent. In that name is fa inna ma'al usri yusra. In that name, the difficulty and the ease, which we also know can be translated as happiness. You're going to have some challenges. If your name is Mohammed, you are going to experience a time where you don't feel praiseworthy. But you have to do the work that's going to require you to step into what that really means for you, right? If your name is, I'm thinking of, Amina, what it means to be a friend, right? That in you doing that, you're going to know what it means to not have any friends, to not be friendly. That may be the journey. I don't know. However it is that Allah has written it for you, you got to know the illness in order to recognize the cure. They say the worst illnesses are illnesses that have no symptoms. It's the worst illness. That's the worst sickness you could ever have, is to not be able to identify the symptoms. Why? Because you'll be walking around with the contamination, with the toxins, with the illness, and all of that, with no chance of correcting it. But Allah has given us the resource and the solution to every problem. So if there's a part of me in my life where I feel incomplete, I go, okay, I need to understand this, because in me, further understanding and nurturing parts of myself, I know how to make it complete. That's my design. That's the design that Allah has placed upon me when He inspired the tongues of my parents to name me Camila. And now I am responsible for becoming Camila. That's the life journey. The life journey is to be Camila. The life journey is not to be nobody else. At all. At all. I can love and admire certain people. I can find them inspirational and I can learn from them, right? But my task in life is not to become Yolanda Mahassan Shuaib. That's my mom, right? My journey is not to become Fahim Shuaib. No, they're my parents. I love them. But my task, my only job, is to become Camila Mahassan Shuaib. So who are you? And are you seeking to become who it is that Allah has inspired you to be? Or are you seeking to become something else? And with that, I'm going to call the Imam back into the room.
Mhm. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, you said it. I mean, when we named you, we were, still wet behind the ears in totality. You know what I'm saying? You were born the year after we came into the Nation of Islam. So we didn't know anything more than what that book said. That's what we knew. So it's Allah's doing, and alhamdulillah, and obviously more is going to be said about that. Yeah. So when I started with the video and I started listening to it to think about, okay, which part of this are we going to deal with, because I normally I just say, okay, let me see if we can get away with the first 15 minutes. So I mean, when he come on with Booker T. Washington, and then his brother's name was George Washington Carver. Okay, well that's the program. You know what I'm saying? All the rest of it is just all the rest of it is just whipped cream. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, got it. Okay,
that's right. You're right.
So I mean, shoot, I went to the chest and pulled stuff out and said, okay, and you ain't even gonna finish this. But alhamdulillah, so it's good. I feel
Alhamdulillah.
real good about it. So I'm gonna push on. I'm gonna push on because I know it's a lot to say. I'm gonna see if I can keep it inside here, inshallah.
Okay.
I'm gonna tell everybody,
Inshallah.
get your notepads because it's gonna be like that, inshallah. Thank you, my dear. Assalamu alaikum for now. Alhamdulillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We are continuing on the topic. What's the power? The power in names. The power in names. And I do have a presentation that I put together for as far as PowerPoint is concerned, just to get it started. I don't know. Inshallah, we'll get to some of the humor. Some very humorous dimensions of this too. Let me get my sharing game together. Screen share. All right, good. So we're going to start with this page here from Imam Muhammad rahimahullah. I'm sorry, I don't know which one it was. Let me see if I can give it a quick shot and see if anything comes up. Yeah, I think it's in this book, Thoughts for Searchers Seeking to Understand Life. I'm sorry, I didn't cover pages or anything, but I can look at the way that the notes are in this book and the way they are in that frame. So I believe it came from this book, Thoughts for Searchers Seeking to Understand Life, book compiled by Imam Ronald Shahid, of the many books from his conversations, he and a group of individuals' conversations with Imam Muhammad over a number of years. But let's just read this here. He said, speaking of more to names than we think, he said, every human being, whether they are aware of it or not, have a role that is prepared for them. There's a role prepared for them, and sometimes it's not major at all, very minor. It has no real meaning in man's world. It has no presence, no meaning in man's world. But what God has designed for one of us, he designed for all of us. If he's designed it for one, it's designed for all. Yes, you had to be what you are. That is, you were created to be what you are, and you had to be what you are. You couldn't be anything different. It's the same for all of us. It's in Allah, in God's plan. And I don't believe anybody receives a name without it being in God's plan that they be named that. I mean, on one level, I know I'm stepping away. On one level, it's like nothing happens but by the will of Allah. So, and everything that's going on in the nature of creation was a part of the potential and the reality and the qadr of Allah in the design. So if that's the name, how can it be other than what Allah had willed in his plan, right? He said, if his name is dog or hyena, I don't care what his name is, the name had to be approved by Allah, by God, the creator, before that name could be accepted in his life. If that name isn't to be his, it's not going to be his, no matter what it is. So there is more to names than we think, much more. Going on, he says, I've done it, studied for many years now, at least for longer than my life as leader. That is that beginning time, 75 and whatever time this was addressed. I have studied for more than half my life as the leader, how names influence the outcomes of the person that has that name. Now, sometimes the person can defeat the influence of their name and become the opposite of it, whether good or bad, become the opposite of that name. But that name was the cause of that person making the change. So we can't name anything. And I guess I always knew it. I never wanted the power to name. Whatever my wife wanted, I let her do. Even though I didn't agree with it, I wouldn't give a name unless she asked me to give names. So much for that. So this is So the Imam is saying this is the order of nature. This is a rule. This is a principle. This is a law in the nature of creation. If that's the name that you got, then that was the name that Allah willed / allowed for you. Now, I want to look at this humorous pieces here. Let's see if it will show up the. I think I have to do a new share. So let's do a new share. Just have a little fun real quick. On this, I'm going to share something new here. And so this, okay, let's go screen share. Yeah. So we just hit a couple of these. There's actually 40 of them. So Camille, let me know. We're seeing this on the screen that I'm moving around?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it's okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So there's 40 hilarious times people were born to do their job, right? So here's the names go. Okay. Number one, neuroscientist, the one who wrote this book on clinical neurology, his name, Lord Brain, right? And this one, firefighter, Lieutenant Les McBurney. Okay. And then this one cracked me up when I first saw it. This lawyer, her name, this is like she's Korean, it appears. Her name is Sue Yu. That's her job. Her job is to sue you. And how about this one? Another Asian name. He's a cashier, or he or she is a cashier, and their name is Kaching. Kaching. So that's her name. This guy's name, Andrew Drinkwater. He is a part of the Water Research Center. That's his name. They showing it as a news clip, billboard. That's just his name, Andrew Drinkwater, right? This one, his name is Alan Toogood. He's a volunteer with Samaritan Volunteers. Alan Toogood, right? How about this one? This is a physician. His last name is Doctor, so his name is Doctor, right? This one, her name, she's a cashier, and her name is Cashiera, right? And then how about this? Dr. Ashley Seawright. It's spelled Seawright, but it is pronounced Seawright. And this doctor is an eye specialist, Dr. Seawright. And the gastroenterologist, his name is Joshua Butt, Butt. And we're going to end it with this one. The music, there are 40 others. 29 others. The music teacher, her name is Miss C Sharp, music teacher. Okay, so these are examples of connections between person's occupation and their name. Now we're going to go now to a little more of the science of it. Oh, actually, okay. I guess I do have to get the link and then go from there. So we're going to go to Wikipedia with a new share here. Let's stop this one. Let's get this one. Let's see. And now I want to share this one. A lot of switches here, but it's coming. So I want to show the Wikipedia. Yes, here it is. So here's from Wikipedia on this here. They're called, the actual name for these circumstances here. This, and I'll go ahead and tell you. We got to take a lesson with everything that we can get. They're called neologism. Neologism means newly created words. A newly created word. So the individual created this word, is mentioned here on this page. I know it's probably not clear to you because it's not really as clear as I would like for it to be for me. But this Franklin P. Adams was a writer who coined the anagram. He took it from patronym. Patronym means the name of the father, or the name after the father. Patronyms, the name that was given by the father, or the name that is given because of the father, whatever, the name of the father. Well, he just used an acronym that is, he flipped the two letters A and P. So he calls them aptronyms, to have the apt, like when you have aptitude, or someone is apt to do something. So aptronym. So he's saying that these are names that incline you to a particular way of being, per se, right? And he has this very, very long list of. Let me see if there's any way I can. I don't know if I can make this bigger. But he has this list. Let's go. Exit full screen. This is. So I believe you can see. So here examples. This just so you can see how long that list is. So when Imam talks about the influence of names, right? The influence of names. These are just some examples that it just pulled out for it, and I'll read just a couple of them to get through it. Where it says Jules Angst. This is in the first one. Jules Angst. He's a Swiss professor of psychology who published works on anxiety, which is angst, right? Michael Ball, English footballer, that is soccer player. Colin Bass, or bass. That's the way, if you're talking about fish, then it's bass. But bass, if you're talking about music, then it's bass. Same spelling, B-A-S-S. He's a British bassist in the rock band Camel. Lan, I guess they call him bass. He's the bass singer in the American pop group NSYNC. Michael Bass, American bassist and musician. Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone. Dr. Willard Bliss, has to do with James Garfield. I'm not in touch with that. The idea, Usain Bolt, right? Jamaican sprinter. And it just goes on. Russell Brain, who is the first Baron brain neurologist, right? Russell Brain. And so many others that we have. Here's one. Christopher Koch, drug lord and cocaine trafficker. Did they have a picture of him? All right. So the point is that there's a real foundation for the idea that the names that the individuals have influence their lives and their livelihood. So let's go ahead and take this out and go back to my other presentation here. And what I want to point out here is that here's the language literally for that. Let me blow it up so you can see it. Here's the name for that power in names. Let's make it just big enough, mainly for the purpose of you being able to see it, right? And it is, I'm just gonna take that out. I'm gonna go ahead and take that out too. And what it's called is nominative determinism. Nominative determinism. So those of you grammarians who are studying Arabic grammar and the like, nominative. You have the nominative, accusative, etc. So nominative determinism is a hypothesis which suggests a causal relationship based on the idea that people tend to be attracted to areas of work that fit their name. That is the hypothesis which suggests that there's a causal relationship based on the idea that people tend to be attracted to areas of work that fit their name. So what does this have to do with Islam, wealth creation, etc.? You should take from the opening piece that we started with, that the young men who were named by their mother, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, and the consequence of those names in their life. And I mean, it's just amazing to be reminded, because that's what it struck me as a reminder, that Booker T. Washington was a millionaire. I don't know if he said it was the first black millionaire. I know about that Madam C.J. Walker piece. I don't know when she hit that million, etc. But in any case, Booker T. Washington became a millionaire up from slavery, right? So it's like, okay, here we got somebody who became a millionaire, and they were much closer to slavery than any of us were, so close that he was in it, right? And so it's like, okay, and we are not getting those meals for what, right? So it's like we need to rethink the whole idea about what we can't do and what's not possible, etc. And so this young man, by virtue of his name and by virtue of the meaning behind the name, that always became the driving force behind his behavior, behind his action. Now, what it has to do with Al-Islam is this. And this, I say again, I got a little emotional the couple of weeks ago for Jum'ah, when we talked about Allah has just prepared us for everything. As Muslims and believers, like, you got everything you need. This is a clear statement from the Quran. I won't repeat it. But the point is that there's nothing, that Al-Islam is the whole package. But back to Camila. El-Yawma Akmaltu. Camila is in that. El-Yawma Akmaltu. This day have I completed for you. Right? Complete. Right? This day have I completed for you. El-Yawma Akmaltu lakum dinukum wa atmamtu. And that's where the terminology for perfected, it's really in that atmamtu. So the idea of completion is in the akmaltu. The idea of perfected is in atmamtu. So somebody says, I mean, you're running those situations where you talk to somebody in Arabic a little bit, where they say, Kayf al-hal. They say Kayf al-hal. Said, how is you? How is you? They're not Bilalian Arabs. I got caught up in the crossover of how is your condition. That's really what you're saying when you're Kayf al-hal. Going back to the grammar, hal is talking about the condition, right? Kayf al-hal, what is your condition? So the Imam would mock those of us who that's the only Arabic you know, and then you trying to, you drop that like, you about to talk a lot of Arabic, right? Kayf al-hal, the Imam say, are you a doctor? How's your condition? If you ain't a doctor and you're not participating, it's to push you away from fronting, right? If you're not a doctor, you shouldn't be asking me what's their condition, right? But in any case, when that does happen to someone who is an Arabic language speaker, one of the ways of replying is kulli shay'in tamam. Kulli shay'in tamam. So kulli shay'in tamam means everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. It's perfect. I know, of course, we're used to saying things like alhamdulillah, but which is always true. But then also kulli shay'in tamam. So that's perfect, right? Everything is perfect. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinukum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mat. I perfected my favor. Allah is telling us Al-Islam is my perfect favor on you, and your deen, your way of life, I've completed it for you. You don't have to be a philosopher. You don't have to be an intellectual. You don't have to be a saint or a holy man, holy woman, whatever it might be. People think they have to do in order to really be into the how can you say, blessed state with God. No, God said, I've done that. El-Yawma Akmaltu, I've completed for you your way of life. Okay, that whole job, that's been done. Here's your package. And it's my perfect favor to you. So this means that no matter what conditions we face, Al-Islam has the answer. Al-Islam has the what to do. Doesn't matter. Good situation, bad situation, crisis, no crisis, peace, war. Al-Islam, answer, right? And so my getting emotional about it is like, you think about all these things that are going on right now, both the good and the bad right now. Al-Islam has the answer. So we're thinking in terms of economic wealth creation and preservation. So the big deal is, really AI is what's out there, right now as the big thing, right? And AI, no matter what you think about AI, or no matter what you think it is, in essence, AI is about facilitating. So, it's just like the wheel, right? You have the wheel, or you can talk about fire, right? So fire is a tool, right? But for a long time, I always talk about the movie Quest for Fire. But for a long time, we didn't know how to make fire, human beings. And so we used to have to fight everybody, in order to get out a little bit of fire, and then put somebody as the keeper of the flame. And if they let that fire go out, they're going to have a problem. Because if we lose this little bit of fire that we have here in the flame, then that means now we got to go fight somebody else for their fire. So if you don't know how to make fire, then that's a problem, right? So in any case, once we learned how to make fire, okay, that's the end of fighting over fire, because I'll make my own fire. I don't have to worry about that. So fire is a tool, right? So once you develop that tool, now you can do many other things. You don't have to worry about spending your life trying to keep the flame alive, because you know how to create flame to do all the things that you need flame to do. Okay, well, so it lifted a burden, if you will. And the same thing is for a wheel, right? The wheel is and was an invention that helped man be able to carry burdens over longer distance with less energy and effort, right? So it's an invention. The wheel was an invention. The fire was the capacity for making fire was an invention. AI is at the long end of invention. In fact, there's one book that calls these type of things the lever of riches. A lever is like we say lever sometimes, either way. The lever. So it's this lever. Got a flat tire a few days ago. Called AAA. AAA comes out. This guy's in a little small van or whatever. Reaches in the back. Pulls out this jack, this hydraulic jack, he just rolls it right on over, and one hand pump, so that 2-ton car just lifted up one hand. Man with one hand jacked it up. That's a lever. So with that leverage, right? That leverage, and with that tool, he was able to move that weight, right? So wheels did the same thing. All right. Well, AI, artificial intelligence, is a tool. It is a tool, right? And the simplicity of it. Now, people, look, there's certain people they just gone. They got it, they get it, and then they've created products and programs and because that's what it is. This is the latest thing. This is the fire. This is the wheel. This is the lever. Okay, well, I better get on it. Because it is about adapt or die. The slower ones to adapt, the more you get left behind. And here's the beautiful thing to try to get to the key point. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, half of knowledge is intelligent questions. Half of knowledge is intelligent questions. Isaac Newton, the one who is a world changer in the West. Let's not get into all the ethnic debates and the stolen legacy. And we know. Granted. All right, let's move on. So the idea is, but he was known for being able to ask the right and the different questions. That was the difference maker. It's like, okay, well, what if? And that's what hypotheses are. Hypothesis is nothing but asking what if. What if the case may be, what if the case was X, Y, Z, Z, Y, X? Okay, so the science comes out of that. Well, AI, like fire and like the wheel, it makes it easier for you, and it takes you less time to get answers to your formulated questions. It used to be that you formulate a question, then you got to go take your library card out, right? And you got this is you're even in the presence of Google and the presence of Wikipedia, whatever. And I understand about all the weaknesses. I'm not going to keep trying to satisfy people that are intellectually rigorous. Okay, I respect you. It's good. The point is that there used to be much more manual effort to do research and get your information, organize your thoughts, structure your presentation, before AI. Now with AI, what's your question? Literally, what's your question? All right. Once you know what your and then if you ask your question, see, it's only limited by your capacity for asking questions. You ask a question. If you ask the question too broadly, then you're going to get a broad answer. But the more you refine your question, the more you get very specific answers. Now, look, as I ought to make you pay for this, but I'm gonna give you this right here, and you can thank me tomorrow. Listen, if you don't already know, there's this piece called Perplexity AI. Perplexity and probably .ai. So it's AI. So there are people who are taking AI and making stuff, right? So AI is just out there. Open AI is out there. So whoever can grab it, it's like whatever. It's like malleable plastic. I don't like plastic because of the ecological problems, but you understand the nature of it. That Perplexity AI, what it would do the same thing for you like Chat GPT, which is essentially I guess it's the new Google, what have you. So it'll do the same thing for you that Chat GPT does, but Chat GPT, its information stops like 2021, 2022, something like that, 2021. But Perplexity AI, you can ask the same question, and it will also give you the resource papers and pages and websites that you can go to if you want to do that drill down on whatever your question is. It will footnote your answer. So I said, okay, number one is in this magazine, number two is over here in this video, and this one over here, you can find it on this webpage, and do that. So what's the deal? What's your question? That's, what is your question? If you don't know what your question is, that's why you're not able to get it. So I'm gonna move off of that. Now, so Allah said, so Allah has already equipped us in the life of the Prophet. He said the half of knowledge is in the right question. So a Muslim who lives by that and takes that way of thinking and being and acting, takes that to AI and all of what is generated by that, well, they can keep up. They can keep up with what's going on in the world. You will not get left behind, right? So that's one thing. Now, back to also the issue of the names. It's hadith and it's perfect way of life that Allah has, the perfect favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this complete way of life, a way of life which when we adapt it, it suits us for whatever world we're living in at the time, right? And that is when the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said the obligation of the parent is to teach the child, to give the child a good name and to teach them morals. To give the child a good name and to teach them morals. Because with those two things, that's the abstract of what makes a good life. We see here again, bring your attention back to it, nominative determinism, the hypothesis that suggests a causal relationship based on the idea that people tend to be attracted to areas of work that fit their names. Now we give names that have to do with the moral life of the person, and alhamdulillah, that's fine. And that's good, and ultimately that's the best thing, because you can create wealth, etc. But if you don't have the moral sensibility that can balance and utilize that wealth in a way that doesn't hurt you and others, well, then it's a problem, right? But at the same time, in terms of those of us who are naming children, you're having children, you're naming children, etc. And even if you're changing names, as many of us did, then the selection of a name that has powerful, influential forces, because it's a what do we say? it's a label and it's a destiny. It's a label and it's a destiny. So our names are aspirational as well as a label for what we believe to be our content, right? And to speak about, if Allah intends a name for you, that's going to be the name you're going to have. And even if you had other ideas, that one is not going to stick. The other one's going to stick. I've told this story before, but I've earned the right of a veteran to repeat war stories. Here's the when I chose my name, the first name that I had actually settled on was Talib Medyun. Talib Medyun. Talib, because the idea of I was a seeker of knowledge. I was a student, right? A seeker of knowledge. Medyun, my last name, as we used to call them, slave name, was Woods, right? So Medyun was the people of the woods, right? Medyun, in the book that Camila talked about. So it's like, okay, so that's me. So I can keep the woods piece with the Medyun piece, and then the Talib went with that, right? But before I locked it down as my name, I never got any documents where that was the name, but that was kind of like I floated it to myself. But then before I made that final decision, I went around and got people who knew me from forever, quote unquote, elementary school, junior high school, teachers, old girlfriends and old friends of mine, men, just try, what do you think about, what character traits, attributes that you think are more true for me, right? So they would come with things like someone who's wise beyond their years, someone who's very intelligent. My nickname was Genie, in the hood, you grew up, my full name was, I charge you for this too, but George Eugene Woods, right? So George Eugene, so Eugene was the middle name, and people just, my family and everybody, just called me Genie, right? They just called me Genie. But in school, the idea was Genie. The idea of Genie was genius, right? That was the force of the nickname. He's a genius, right? This is elementary school. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. It's no boast. But the idea of intelligence, wise beyond the years, et cetera, and one who understands. So that's how Fahim came into the picture. Fahim, because of all those things I just mentioned. Fahim became the picture because that's what the receipts were saying, quote unquote, the social proof, you might say. Okay, he's Fahim, right? Okay, good. Okay, what about the other one? One who is wise beyond his years, right? So that goes with the Shu'aib, right? With the Shu'aib. I didn't know anything about Shu'aib being a prophet of the Quran, just like Camila was saying, her just finding out about things that she didn't know at her time by virtue of what Imam Pasha, rahimahullah, his work, right? So likewise for myself, Shu'aib. So it turns out as I got further and further into, my life as Muslim studies, etc. So it turns out that Shu'aib was the prophet that was sent to the Madyun people. He was the prophet that sent to the Madyun people. And so the people of the woods. So the woods still got there in the surname, right? And then even further, I mean, this is later, even since, probably since we were broadcasting, not today, but as long as I've been on the net doing broadcast. In that time, turns out one of the main things with Shu'aib was how the people were relating to economics, how the people were relating to the wealth. He said, does this relate to Shu'aib? In that, if there's a verse in there where it talks about, does this religion of yours not allow us to do what we want with our money? That's the expressive version of it. It's just your religion don't let us do what we want to do with our money, right? So this is again, so the Fahim Shu'aib, that's what got locked in, even though my first mind, quote unquote, was saying, okay, this is this and that. And God said, okay, it's a derivative of Talib, one who understands. It's derivative of that, Fahim, because if you're a good student, you will come to understand, right? And then Madyun, then the Shu'aib comes along with that because it's the prophet to the people of the woods, right? So, okay, so the idea is the name. So we want to give good names with respect for the influence that the names have on the person in their whole life. So look at how this woman, I mean, those of you who didn't catch the beginning of the broadcast, Camila, if you can put the title of the whole video in the chat. I'm not remembering it right now. But in any case, so or the link, maybe just copy the link and put it in. So the idea is that here's a young man who got his first franchise when he was 22 years old, and as of the age 11 has been entrepreneurial at 11, and then at 22 a franchisee, owner, and a boss and an employer in legit stuff, not on in the black market, quote unquote. And in Atlanta, huh? And so she had the foresight to give him what he needed to be influenced toward a good life, right? So that's very, very important for us to get. Now, what I'm going to do, inshallah, we'll see what time allows us to get through. Now, last week we talked about following your bliss. We talked about following your bliss, and the bliss is BLISS. Believe, locate, institutionalize, specialize, and then succeed. I'm not going to go over that now. Last week, so if you know how to get to the archives, Blog Talk last week, do that. Facebook, YouTube, Fahim Shoaib, you'll find it there. And so the fundamentals of that 5-letter acronym is designed to just let us know in broad strokes, this is what you have to do in order to be successful. The best way to be successful is first believe that there's something that you have been gifted with. Allah did not allow anyone to come into this existence without a gift. I'm trying to resist teaching it. But the idea, first you have to believe it. Now you have to believe that it's there. You believe that you have a gift from God. Now you have to locate it, right? And once you locate it, okay, now you have to find the discipline for it, institutionalize it. You have to find someone who's at the top of that game, someone who's at the top of that particular skill set, someone who has already made success in that type of skill set, that level of engagement, whatever it might be, doesn't matter. So now then to get mentored, i.e., and also find the discipline, follow the discipline, institutionalize that, and then specialize. Don't just say, okay, I'm good at it, but I'm also one who does that. No, you want to be a specialist, right? You want to be a specialist. And so once you reach that level of specificity, that special capacity, then success is automatic. That's just, done. All right. Now, so the Quran also, so we're going to talk about a different 5-letter piece that's critical also for success. And that is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in 17th chapter, 84th verse, قُلْ قُلُوا يَعْمَلُوا عَلَى شَاكِلَةٍ, that is upon their disposition. وَرَبُّكُمْ أَعْلَمُ مَنْ هُوَ أَهْدِ السَّبِيلَ, and your Lord knows best who is guided on the way, right? So the idea is that everyone acts according to their own disposition. So action, there's another layer to this that mashallah, I'm just satisfied. We're not going to be able to cover it all today. But the idea is about action. So let me see if I can abbreviate that part. So getting past, I'm going to go through what you see on the screen there. And while we're going to stop at action, the point is that when you, in order for you to get results out of the nature of creation, the nature of creation is a cause and effect mechanism. The nature of creation is a cause and effect mechanism. If you want to bring about a certain effect, then you got to know what cause brings about that effect. And however that, and whatever, no matter what the cause, for whatever effect, the point is you're going to have to act. You're going to have to act. So, no, there's no just thinking about it. No, you're going to have to act. So the wisdom comes in when knowing what is the right action to bring about the desired effect. But if you never act on, even if you know what the right action is, but if you never do the right action, you're never going to see the effect, even though your knowledge of cause and effect relationship is correct. But if you don't do it, no result. Why? Because we live in a lawful creation. The creations that you don't do, I don't do, right? And this is what God said. Do they think, Quran, do they think that they're going to be rewarded for something other than their deeds? This is the creator of the creation that we live in, that we hope to be blessed through and in. He said, do they think they're going to be rewarded for something other than their deeds? So action is critical. All right. So I'm gonna do right now. So everything that I said right now is sort of like a trailer for, well, what's coming later. How do we move from this action to law to the manifestation of what it is that we're trying to get? That's a longer story, but I want to give these 5 things that leads up to how you generate the actions that you want to generate, right? So it's like if you can get yourself to act in the way that you know you're supposed to act, and that you are acting on and as what have you is satisfactorily, you're confident that it is the right action for the desired result, well, then the only thing you need to do is know what the right action is, do the right action, then the mechanism takes over from there, which is the lawful creation takes over from there. Okay, so let's just try to understand just the nature of all actions, right? It's not too big of a question. Just the nature of all action, because it in a manner of speaking, it's simple. It's as simple as you see right there on the screen. For those of you who are watching on the screen, it goes from consciousness to experience to values to emotion to disposition to action. That's what it is. I put it in 5 letters: EVEDA, EVEDA, which is what we're going through. All right, so let's delineate this, tick this off here, right? Okay, there's consciousness, right? Like right now, you're conscious. You're conscious. Even when you sleep, you're conscious. We call it subconscious, but in terms of dreams, if you're having dreams, then you're still conscious, but you're just at a subconscious level. It says subconscious, but that's the difficulty with the words itself. We're not even going to go into that. The point is that if you are alive, you are conscious, right? If you're alive and sleep, you're still conscious, not in the way that I'm trying to avoid trying to talk about. The idea is, so we all have consciousness. If you're alive, you have consciousness, right? And there's no consciousness without experience. Okay, so that's wrong in terms of that writing right there. It should be there is no consciousness. So I know somebody read that and said, well, what are you about to say? There's consciousness without experience? No, there is no consciousness without experience. So let me see something here. Let me see if I can change that live, because that'll get away from us some kind of way. Let's okay, no. All right, whatever. Good. We gotta let it go. Okay, everybody, for the final time, there is no consciousness without experience. There's no experience without value. There's no value without emotion. There's no emotion which doesn't shape disposition, and there's no disposition which doesn't shape actions. So the idea is that if you want to act in a certain way, then you got to go back up that chain, right? You got to go back up that chain. When you start with experience, and you have to create experience that create value, and you have to create values that create the emotions. You have to have the emotions that create the disposition, and you have to have the disposition that creates the action. All right. So that's what you have to do. This is the chain of action. It's the chain of action. First, you're conscious. And all of this that we're speaking of, it happens just in milliseconds. It happens so quick. But let's just go ahead and just delineate the formula itself. Okay, so first statement, there is no, so sorry about that. There is no consciousness without experience. Consciousness is the awareness of internal and external existence. That is, if you are aware that there's an internal existence, external existence, if you're having experiences, okay, well, that's what experiences are. There's no way for you to be conscious and not have experience, right? Descartes, the famous statement said, I think, therefore I am, right? So as long as I have this consciousness, then I exist, right? So these experiences are first registered by our physical sensitivities, which are the five senses. So the five senses, everybody that's conscious, they're aware of that consciousness because of the virtue of the five senses. All right. So there's no consciousness without experience. There's no experience without value. Everything that we experience gets a value. Every experience we have is defined by our consciousness as either positive or negative. These experiences accumulate and they connect in unique and distinct ways for every individual, right? You have your mind, I have mine, etc. And forming unique relationships and patterns of association in their consciousness. My sister, she hates oatmeal. My wife, she doesn't like oatmeal either. Me, give me that oatmeal, right? Put some raisins on, put some brown sugar, maple sugar, honey, or whatever. Don't hold back the butter either. Put that butter in there, man, and let's put some raisins in there, and we good. Let's have breakfast, right? But somebody else ready to vomit after that, because we all form unique relationships and brain patterns of associations through our own consciousness, and that's what we call our personality. I call it, and it's true. The personality is your personal reality. Personality is the personalization of your brain. Everybody's got a brain, but everybody have different personalities. Where's the personality? The personality is the personalization of your brain. You got a human brain. I got a human brain. You got a different personality. I got a different personality. My personal reality is different than your personal reality. Beautiful. Alhamdulillah and Rabbil Alameen. The pleasure and pain experience of a stimuli is the product of mutual inhibition, right? Which means that there's attraction or aversion. That is, certain stimuli come in. Okay, if it's positive, I'm attracted to it. If it's negative, I'm averse to it. That's it, and that happens just instantaneously throughout our whole life, throughout our whole experience. And so this mutual inhibition function in the nerve structures of the brain, which results in the formation of neural patterns. So neural patterns are brain patterns, and again, it's your personality, right? So this thing about FAP and MAP, you need to look this up to detail it. I'm going to try to slow myself down a little more. So FAP is fixed action pattern. MAP is modal, M-O-D-A-L, modal action pattern, right? And we all do it. So, I mean, I'm giving you the name for it, but you're doing it anyway. It doesn't matter. And I listened to another scientist who he was talking about, it's called click run. So once you have a fixed action pattern, which is based on the brain patterns that your experience has brought you into, your brain has been personalized that way, such that, so you have a fixed action pattern around whatever. I'm not even going to try to give an example. There's certain ways that we are, certain ways that, I hit you real quick and for myself real quick. Long time ago, I was still working for the city of Oakland at this time. It didn't matter. Such that something stressful was going on during Ramadan, right? During Ramadan, some period of time. And, not remember whatever the situation was. What I do remember was this epiphany that when I was walking this Ramadan, and I go into the kitchen and put my hand on the refrigerator handle, and I'm opening up the refrigerator, and I tell myself, hey, it's Ramadan, right? And then what comes after that is that, oh, you use food to deal with stress. That moment said, okay, this is your fixed action pattern. This is your modal action pattern. This is your click run, such that, okay, once a thing gets so far, people use language like trigger this and trigger that. But in reality, or rather, and in reality, what it is, it's like you have a certain brain pattern, you have a certain personality that will say, look, whenever we get into this situation, then you go do this. This is what your employees in your being are saying based on the structure of your personality, personal reality that comes from all these experiences. So fixed action patterns, they come different ways, right? So the idea is that these neural patterns give us brain patterns, which give us behavior patterns, right? And many times we don't know where they come from, but all this is happening instantaneously. So to quickly get done and move on, the pleasure and pain experience value of a stimulus is the product of this mutual inhibition, attraction, aversion function in the nerve structures of the brain, which result in the formation of neural patterns. So many of our our mental habits have to do with evaluations that we have applied to our experiences, most of which we are unconscious, because 95% of our life is lived unconsciously, because Allah doesn't intend for us to always have to do everything consciously. At certain points in time, once we have decided that, okay, this is what's good, this is what's bad, then all of the employees of yourself say, okay, y'all, this is what's good, this is what's bad, and this is what we do when the good thing comes up, and this is what we do when the bad thing comes. Who's that talking? Your own design, your own employees of your own self, right? Your own brain patterns that you and us, that we have approved by constantly doing in certain situations, click, run, fixed action pattern, modal action pattern. This is what we do. So obviously, then the next question is that next need is break the bad habits, reinforce the good ones. Let's move on. It is against the background of these formed patterns that every individual judges all experiences and gives the experience of value. So once your brain patterns get established in a certain way, then everything is filtered. Every experience, every stimulus that comes in from your environment, also and even externally and internally, something comes up to your consciousness from yourself internally because of something that you're feeling, and then your fixed action pattern, your brain pattern says, okay, therefore we're supposed to do this, whatever it may be. I'm not going to elaborate. So it's coming from the inside or coming from the outside, because that's the value that our personality has given this experience. So we all have this evaluative function that happens. So let's move to the next thing. There is no value without an emotion. Okay, so there's a value that we put to something, and that's where we get our emotions from. That's the way we feel about a thing because of the way that it was evaluated. Let's read what we have here. At the first or concrete level of new experience, there's no emotion. So imagine you experiencing something for absolutely the first time, never experienced it before, totally novel, right? So at the first or concrete level of a new experience, there is no emotional reaction to it at the very split. But here's the next sentence. However, that state of emotionlessness, it has no valence. That's really what value is also tied to. Valence, power, attraction, etc. Valentine's Day, right? That power and attraction. So the lack of valence, it's like an atom not having an electron or something like that. That is a split microatomic millisecond that electron jumps from here to there. But that state of emotionlessness for us in our consciousness towards any concrete novel experience is infinitesimally brief in milliseconds and in fractions of milliseconds, right? Listen, when you see somebody, it just doesn't matter. When you see somebody, I don't care whether it's on public transit or whether it's in a hotel or whether it's at a party or whether it's at a masjid, well, in a millisecond, your personality has already decided positive or negative about whoever it is that you're looking at. There's no neutral. You can rationalize to yourself about, I don't care about who it is. I don't even think about it. No, your subconscious, your makeup has made a decision as to whether that person is a positive or a negative, no matter what grade of positive or negative. But it happens just that quick. All right. So that's how it is with all experience. There's no experience that doesn't get a value tied to it, right? And there's no value that does not also incorporate an emotion with it. So let's move on. So an infinitesimally brief in milliseconds, that there is no experience that isn't immediately evaluated in the context of the background of all our previous experiences. That is, our personalities evaluate instantaneously right? And now listen, the verse that we started the Jum'ah with, 2:16, Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2:16, it said, it may be that you love a thing that you should hate, and it may be that you hate something that you should love, right? So that's how it is sometimes. Sometimes we misevaluate because of the system that our personality has been shaped on. Sometimes we call a good thing bad and a bad thing good. That's because our personality has been disordered relative to the values that Allah would have for us. And that's a big part of what conversion is and reversion is. Fitratullahi lati fatara nasa alayha, la tabdila li khalqillah. The idea is getting back to the original perceptions that Allah would have us, seeing things the way that Allah would want us to see things. That's what taqwa actually is. Seeing through the lens and filtering experience, good and bad, as we would call them, filtering them through the experience in the way that Allah would have us see that. So much teaching in Quran in that. So it is this evaluation of our experiences by our personalities or our minds, which is the personalization of your brain. Your mind is the personalization of your brain, and that is your personality, right? So it is this evaluation of our experiences by our personalities that give rise to our emotions. Why do some people love Trumps? Why do some people hate Trump? All right, it has all to do with consciousness, evaluation, or experience, evaluation, and the emotions, etc. Emotions are defined as affective disturbances that originate in the psychological situation of the person. So each short version of what I just said is like, why do some people love so-and-so and hate so-and-so? It's because of their affective dispositions, all right, which is a part of their personality, right, which originates in their psychological situation, right? So we use another 5-letter acronym, ADOPS. Affective disposition that originates in the psychological situation. Listen, I can listen to, let's just go with Bernie Mac comedy, right? And I can still call it can be funny, right? But then some Muslim, no doubt, will say, what you doing laughing at that? That's vulgar. That's this. That's it. Hey, sometimes stuff be funny. Right. So, but that's the average. Now, other people who have a different, i.e., personality, different affective disposition, they say, "Oh, astaghfirullah, a'udhu billah." And I do say that where it's appropriate. Don't get me wrong, but I'm making a point here. The point is that certain people find certain things funny, right? And certain people don't find the same things funny, right? So that's how it is with everything. It's the psychological situation of the person, how they emotively respond to a thing. So any movement of our consciousness away from a steady state, right? So if you're doing nothing, you're just sitting in the chair, woo woo. So you're in a steady state, etc. Okay, but then somebody tells a joke, right? It's like the Richter scale when it shows you that there's an earthquake or something like that, and this homeostasis is broken. Well, that's an affective disturbance. So the disturbance can be based on something negative or it can be based on something positive. Either way, it's still emotional. It's an emotional response. Now, the positiveness or the negativeness of any experience depends on our minds. Back to that personality, right? And the mind means the same thing as psychological situation. That is, your emotions are based on your personality. Your personality is a reflection of your psychological situation, either at the time or in accordance to your general disposition, right? Is that there's certain people you can see or that about them, and you already know if I tell them this joke, they're not going to see it as funny. Why? Because you already understand about their general disposition that, okay, they don't go that way in the context of affective disposition, right? Let's move on. Okay, so there's no value without emotion. All right, so then there's no emotion that doesn't shape our dispositions, right? Our dispositions are the products of years and years of experiencing, evaluating, emoting. They are constantly growing and changing because of the ceaselessness of experience. So all this thing that I'm slowing down this process right here, but this is what we are today, where we are, whoever you are, if you're 71, 61, 41, 51, 31, whatever, you are who you are because of this endless chain. This from the moment you've been conscious as a baby, as an infant in this world, This process has been happening. You've been experiencing, you've been evaluating, you've been emoting, and these things have been growing and changing you in a stream of ceaseless experience, right? And every new experience gets reshaped and it grows our minds and leads to new experience. So as your mind grows, evaluation changes. You get what I'm saying? Your mind grows and changes. And so you can experience the same thing that you experienced before a particular transformation, where it was positive before, but as your consciousness evolves through this chain of experience, evaluation, emotion, it said, well, no, it's not funny anymore. I'm not attracted to that anymore. It's not good for me anymore, right? Why? Because of the transformation, right? And we will continue to grow. And this is so you can see this also in the Quran, just coming now as we speak about it. It says every soul shall have the taste of death, right? And Allah is not to be frustrated from changing your forms from one to another, right? So it's like every transformation is a kind of death. Right? The person that I was when I grew up in the hood that I grew up in and the ways that I had that changed, that died when I became part of the Nation of Islam. And who I was in the Nation of Islam, the best of it came forward with me and the rest of it died as I moved out of that into where Imam Muhammad had brought us to at that point and continuing. So that's a taste of death. So what dies is who you were before, and then you come to birth as a new person. But it's all in this schema, in this cycle of experiencing, evaluating, emoting, etc. And so once we know how how those experiences govern that transformation, then what you do actually is you bring yourself into experiences that have that potential transformative effect on you. And then, of course, we know that there are many, that's their whole job. That's what they do. Their whole business model is doing that, right? For us as Muslims, a part of which is not part of what we're going to cover today. That's me to slow down me a little bit. So once you know how to get in front of that, so that front line where I talked about experience, there's no consciousness without experience. Well, that experience, I changed up these letters E, V, E, D, A, different levels, different flow, higher levels of the same thing. And a part of the first E is not just experience. You can see it also as environment and education. Okay, so it says there's no consciousness without experience, right? That's the very biological, neurobiological statement of it. The idea is that when you start that cycle with your focus on education or your environment, one of the ways you change your disposition, change your environment. Change your environment. Literally, it's like where you live, maybe that needs to be changed, in order to feel different. That you change the whole flow if you change the environment. Change your education. So even if you stay where you are and you change your education, that is the level of information and the type of information that you bring into your consciousness, then that brings to you a new experience and that changes the chain itself as well. So remember that. So you can change your environment or you can change your education, and that is what's going to change your experience, and it changes everything in the chain. It changes the way you evaluate. It changes the way you emote. It changes your disposition. That's a big deal that we're saying right here. So let's move on. So every new experience reshapes and grows our minds, which leads to new experiences, new evaluations, new emotions, and on until we die, right? So the net positive or negative magnitude of the collection of evaluations stored in our minds, consciousness, personalities, all those things are basically the same thing. It's like that's the machine that does the evaluating, that does the emoting, etc. And then that's what decides who we are, what we are, and how we are. That's our disposition. I use the analogy, it's like laugh lines. People have laugh lines because they're used to laughing in a certain way, and so it has over the years created these laugh lines. Same way with frown lines, right? I mean, I have seen people, mashallah, as a teacher in our community, standing before audiences of our people. And when I speak to our people sometimes, when they're actually in a relaxed mode, right? It's like they're in a relaxed mode. They look mad. I mean, no, and I mean seriously, it's like they're not mad, but they have a mad, angry disposition. So when they relax, the natural flex of their face, FLEX, the natural flex of it is going to just allow what the form that has come from that normal, the quote unquote, that consistent disposition. It's like, oh man, look like you're frowning, look like you're mad, look like you're angry, right? When that's really not the case. But because of the fact that when you relax, then that leaves the form to express itself in that way. I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. So it gives their faces that general appearance. Let's move on. We're at the last note. And there's no disposition which doesn't shape action. So a generally positive disposition is the product of a generally positive experience, evaluation, emotions. And the person in general will act accordingly. You'll find them. So I usually use a number like, say, their disposition is what? 3/5 of the time you're going to find them in this condition, right? So if a person is a positive person, then you meet them 5 times, and at least 3 out of those 5 times, they're going to be positive, right? Likewise, a person who's negative, has a negative disposition. You see them 3 out of 5 times, and see them 5 times, then 3 out of those 5 times, they're going to be negative. They just have a negative disposition. The other one just has a positive disposition, right? Doesn't mean that either one of them is always that, because on your chance 4 and 5, they may be the very opposite of what you have come to know to be their disposition. So personalities will generally interpret their experiences. So once you have a certain personality, that personality becomes the filter for your interpretation of experiences in your life, right? So such persons will generally interpret their experiences in a positive manner if they're positive and act accordingly. And the same is true for the person who's generally negative in disposition. They're going to act in a negative manner because that's their general disposition. All right. So what I just walked through is just, okay, this is the chain link from how do you get just from consciousness to behavior, right? All right. Now, once you know the kind of behavior that you want to have, and you want that behavior to be automatic, what do you got to go back to the front of the line, get into the right environment that supports that particular way of being, get into the right information and education that supports that way of being. Then you are transforming your mechanism inside to deliver through your automatic behavior the action that you need to carry out in order to instigate, stimulate, evoke, activate the natural laws of creation. Because laws of creation, hey, we don't know you. The laws of creation is just there, right? Water is saying, look, man, I boil it whatever, 112 degrees or 212 degrees Fahrenheit at sea level. That's it. You get that, I'll boil for you. You know, anything else, I don't know. Same with air pressure and everything else, you know, abstract and concrete. All right. So that's going to be it for now. But let me tease you with something that's coming, right? So here we're going to follow up when we get to the action. I'll make this one statement, then Haja is going to be us after that. So I just mentioned this sentence right here. It says abstraction. That is, whatever we imagine or intend as a goal, it meets the world. That is, if you want to see what you are imagining come into existence in the world, it meets the world through the actions of the body, through your behavior, right? Now, if you can't control the way that you act, that's why you can't control what you want to create. The problem is the failure to do what you agree that you have to do in order to get what you want. So everything up to that point is an abstraction, good, bad, indifferent. It's an abstraction. It becomes concrete when you act in line with it, and then the law just delivers what it promises to deliver, given that, as it says up here, the nature and power of the role of yaqeen, given that your knowledge is true to the nature of creation, then you line your behavior up with the knowledge that's true to the nature of creation. And the creation said, here, help yourself. The angels will bow. Inshallah, we'll get to that. All right, that's going to be it. And with that, I'll call Haja back into the room. All right. All right, what you got to say for yourself? We're going to have to get up out of here.
No, I mean, I think you said it.
I can't hear you. Did I mute you?
We pay attention.
Are you
I
muted?
think you mute me on
I
Blog Talk.
got you muted. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just pay attention, look at the notes, and let's start with our name. Everything we want to, let's start with our name. Really dive into that and see where that aligns and the inspiration behind it and move forward utilizing that. So yeah, that's it.
Alhamdulillah. So that's the link to the YouTube piece that we played earlier today, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Well, I have nothing more to offer today. Hakeem,
we'll both be out of town next week.
Oh yeah. So no show Monday. We'll be out, and so inshallah, Allah blesses to be back. We'll be I'll be in Houston. You back out of the country again?
Back out of the country again, and then I'm gonna sit still for a while unless mommy wants to do something next year. Yes.
Inshallah. All right, y'all. That's what it's gonna be. God's peace be on you. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
All righty then. Let me see. Wait, we're not ended yet.